I'd like to ask you about this election because it has been very, very tight. And people were predicting that it would be a lot closer than the exit polls seem to imply. What are your thoughts about this?
Well, first of all, that at the end of the day, Marine Le Pen was simply not credible in the role. What's very interesting is that there were lots of people who wanted to protest the presidency of Emmanuel Macron, but they looked at what was on offer, and the only person on offer was not what they wanted. It's very interesting. If you take the French West Indies, which are départements, they vote like us in France, they voted heavily for Jean-Luc Mélenchon in the first round, and they voted heavily for Marine Le Pen in the second round. And that shows you that it was really an anybody but Macron. And at the end of the day, people felt that Macron was still the more credible. He was somebody under whose stewardship, the country would go on a more even keel than the complete upset that would bring in Marine Le Pen. So to some extent, you can call it Project Fear. But all the same, that's really what it says.
But this is very interesting, isn't it, that you can get voters going from Mélenchon over to Le Pen. It's almost like right and left doesn't really matter anymore. Is that what's happening there?
That is exactly what is happening, and that is something that Emmanuel Macron in many ways created himself, because 5 years ago, when nobody knew who he was an economy minister. He had been there for less than 2 years. Sorry, he hadn't been an MP or anything. You don't need to be in the cabinet. And he suddenly decided that he would run for president, having promised the president against whom he ran that he wouldn't. And he won because he was a new face, and it was already a sort of one of those reflexes of an electorate saying, we want something else. And he was new, he was young, and the others didn't like him. And then what he did is he said that you didn't have to choose between left or right anymore. And he created a slogan that was en même temps, at the same time. And he picked up people and policies from the left and from the right. And under the 5 years of his presidency, the Socialist Party, which had been a government party, and the Républicain Party, which had been a government party, one had François Mitterrand and François Hollande, the other one had Nicolas Sarkozy and Jacques Chirac, and they completely disappeared from the scene. It's not necessarily good, because Macron believed that he could be all things to all people, and he created both extremes who have been the only ones that have been strengthened. It's not very good for French democracy.
But it feels very much like, as you said, it's anyone but Le Pen in a way. And in the 2017 election, there was a record number of spoiled ballots. People didn't particularly want Macron in. They just didn't want the opposition. Is this where we're at now?
Right now, Emmanuel Macron has won today 18.6 million votes. Marine Le Pen had 13.3. Abstentionists were more than Le Pen voters, 13.7, and then you've got null ballots, which are 3 more million. So you've got 16 million people. You're closer to Macron's score than Le Pen's score, who decided that they didn't want to go out and vote.
So is it just simply the case that the Le Pen name is too toxic for a lot of voters, but that there are a lot of voters who are dissatisfied with Macron? I mean, I note in particular the way that he handled the Gilets jaunes protests hasn't gone down well with many, particularly in working class communities. Am I wrong about that?
You're absolutely right. And Marine Le Pen appealed to the working class in ways that, for instance, Donald Trump appealed to the working class in America. People who felt that they were forgotten by the elites in Paris. That, you've got Northwest London and we've got the 7th arrondissement. It's about the same thing. But the other thing is that she did not project an image of competence. And at the end of the day, I think people thought, I'd rather have the guy I don't like, but who looks like he knows what he's doing, more or less, than somebody who has not the experience of government and doesn't sound like she's got the experience of government. And the name has been softened, but not enough. So all these conditions created a situation in which Emmanuel Macron won the presidency very decisively. What's interesting now is that in a month's time, we have the general election, the legislative elections to the House. Does Emmanuel Macron have a majority? And with this kind of sort of clear distance today, he might actually have a majority, but that's not entirely it's not a sure shot entirely. So we'll see what happens.
Last time, the gap between the two was wider from the looks of things, and it appears to be as though there is a momentum moving in Le Pen's direction. She's tried to sanitize the party, change the name of the party, but ultimately will it be the case that she will never win at this because she's a Le Pen?
I think it's also because her party is not a real party. It's a family concern with consiglieri. And whenever there's a tall poppy in that party, they get fired, which is why you had a splinter, Eric Zemmour, the spoiler right-wing candidate. That's also because he picked up some really interesting people from her party that any leader with a bit of ambition would have kept inside a big tent. But she can't do a big tent to save her life because that's not the way the Le Pens operate. So whatever she says now, I think she's a person of the past.